Hello and welcome to my channel. My name is Jordan and thank you so much for clicking on one of my bookish videos. Today I'm super excited because I am going to be talking about my top 10 books of 2025 so far. So now that we are through June into July, I really wanted to share the books that I've loved so much so far this year because this is my favorite thing. I love doing wrap-ups. I live for coming up with my top 10 books at the end of each year, and I thought it would be cool to see my favorite books now and then compare at the end of the year to see what has changed and which have stayed. I have had such a great reading year so far. I have found so many incredible books, a lot of them new releases, and I can't wait to share with you guys which ones are my favorites. So if you are interested in seeing my top 10 books of the year so far of 2025, then keep on watching. Okay, so these books are not in order except for my favorite book, I will say, number one, and that is Barrier Bones in the Midnight Soil by V. Schwab. At this point, I feel like everyone who follows me knows how much I love this book. I have not stopped talking about it all year. I've already read it 3 times and I've loved it every single time I've read it. This is V. Schwab's newest book. It is marketed as Toxic Lesbian Vampires, and it follows 3 women in 3 different time periods who are all turned into vampires and are forced to live with the loneliness and isolation, obsession, and hunger that it is becoming a vampire. Throughout the book, they come to meet each other and interact with each other and affect each other in a lot of different ways. This book was genuinely so much fun to read. I think if you are into vampires fantasy in some regard, you will really enjoy this. If you like queer romances and queer characters, you will enjoy this. And V. Schwab's writing in this was so lyrical and beautiful and just really reflected on the different parts of being a human, and I loved it. Okay, next we have the first romance book of the year that stuck out to me that I have continued to recommend and absolutely love since I read it, I think back in January, and that is First Time Caller by B.K. Borison. This is the first book in her new series, the Heartstring series, I believe. This book is just perfection. This is what contemporary romance rom-coms should be and is the blueprint. In my opinion, I loved reading it so much. So this follows Aiden and Lucy. Lucy is a single mom of a preteen daughter. She is dealing with being in her 30s and being single, and her daughter calls into Aiden's radio romance talk show to ask for love advice for her mom to start dating, and the clip goes viral. So Lucy joins Aiden's show for like a little segment where they start to slowly fall in love throughout the book. I loved this book. I loved the Sleepless in Seattle rom-com inspiration, and I adored Lucy and Aiden's characters so much. Next, we have Gifted and Talented by Olivia Blake. This is her newest fantasy release that came out in April, and I love this book as someone who has also gone from the gifted student to depressed kid pipeline, which is what this book was marketed as. I felt really seen in all of these characters. So this is about the 3 Wren siblings who are forced to come together after their dad, who's this like big tech billionaire, passes away, and they're trying to figure out who inherits the shares to his company, who gets control, and figuring out like the will and inheritance. And you learn about each of these siblings. You have the eldest, the middle child, and the youngest child, who each have very different issues and challenges that they're dealing with and feel very inadequate in their family for different reasons. I just love this book. I feel like, as usual, Olivia's writing about humanity, morality, being morally gray and flawed characters, and family and relationships was so well done. Okay, next we have a recent favorite book for me, and that is Disappoint Me by Nicola Dinnan. This was gifted to me by the Dial Press, so thank you so much to them. I was trying to figure out my top 10, and there were a few ending spots for recent reads that I was debating between, and I just kept coming back to this book. I really enjoyed it. Nicola is a transgender woman, and this book features Max, who is also a transgender woman, which I loved. And this book is really just about Max as a 30-year-old trying to navigate settling into a relationship and settling down with someone when she's always been someone who's really been opposed to the ideal and concept of marriage and children and just really like stereotypical expectations for relationships. And she meets Vincent, who she falls very deeply in love with in a time in her life where she's dealing with a lot of health issues and instability. And throughout the book, you find out from a dual timeline that Vincent has a very dark past and secret history involving another transgender woman. And this book was just so well done. It's about forgiveness, changing, and if you can change from making really horrible mistakes in your past. It was messy, it was complex, and it was really, really beautiful. Next, we have a book that I'm very confident will still be in my top 10 at the end of the year because I loved it so much, and that is My Friends by Frederick Bachman. I adore Frederick Bachman's writing. I think he is one of the best authors out there in terms of his writing style, and again, just how he conveys such human, basic challenges and emotions. This is his newest release, and I have read it twice so far this year and adored it. It follows a group of teenage friends, and it's told from the perspective of this new teenager in the future who meets one of the friends when he's grown up and grieving one of the other friends. It is just about these friends and how they were as teenagers growing up. It's about friendship and uplifting each other and how your friends can really help you get through very difficult times, especially when you're growing up and feeling so many emotions. It's about art and the importance of making art for ourselves and for our loved ones and not necessarily for public consumption. And it made me cry so many times. I loved this friend group dearly. Next, I have another favorite romance book of the year for me, and that is One Golden Summer by Carly Fortune. I really was not expecting for this to be a favorite book. I have enjoyed Carly Fortune's other stories, but this by far stuck out to me. Something about Charlie and Alice's relationship just felt so real and something that I would really love in a relationship. It is about Alice, who is this photographer. She is dealing with a lot of burnout in her career, so she decides to go to Barry's Bay to the lake for the summer with her grandmother, where she meets Charlie, and her and Charlie just form really quickly this friendship where they both kind of open up to each other in ways they never have before with other people, and they just have this flirty, jokey, fun dynamic between the two of them that is so clear how much that they enjoy being with each other and how much they love being in each other's presence as friends. I just loved it. Like, the relationship and the depiction of love in this book felt so realistic and just true, and I really, really loved Charlie's character and I related a lot to Alice's character. Next, I have a fantasy book that I absolutely loved, and that is Oathbound by Tracy Dion. This book was gifted to me by SimonTeen, so thank you so much to them. Everyone that knows me, I feel like, knows that I absolutely love the Legendborn Cycle series so much, and I was eagerly anticipating the release of Oathbound this year, which is the third book in the series, and Tracy Dion did not disappoint with this huge third book. This book definitely dealt a lot with world building, but I was very, very intrigued and loved following Bree in this new type of journey that she goes on in this third book. There was a lot of personal growth of her character, and I loved how the love triangle was kind of expanded in this book, and we got a lot more of the minor characters' point of views, which was super fun. This series follows Bree, who is this black girl who's dealing with the grief of losing her mother. She goes to school at UNC and suddenly becomes involved in this like King Arthur's Knights society where she comes into power in one of the most powerful positions and has to deal with a lot of racism and sexism as this black girl is like head of this organization all of a sudden. And it's just one of the most cool magic systems that I've ever read, and I think the King Arthur fantasy world is so unique. Okay, another romance book that I have absolutely loved that I cannot currently find my copy of, so I'm just gonna put a picture up here, is Before I Let Go by Kennedy Ryan. I have started my Kennedy Ryan journey finally this year, and Before I Let Go was the first book of hers that I read. It's the first book in her Skyland series, and it follows Yasmin and Josiah, who are a divorced couple who own a business together and have two kids together. And so they're kind of co-parenting and co-running their business together. And in this book, you kind of see the back and forth of them fighting their lingering feelings and love for each other. But there's been so much that has happened in their personal life that kind of led them to get divorced. I loved the romance, but I just really loved and related to Yasmin's character. During the fallout that led to their divorce, she was dealing with the grief of losing her child in a stillborn birth, as well as losing a loved one in the family, and she dealt with a lot of depression and suicidal thoughts. And I just loved seeing her at a different place in the future, reflecting on her healing journey of what she had to go through to improve her mental health. I just love the way that Kennedy wrote her character. Okay, I have two more books. So next is The Night and the Moth by Rachel Gillig. This is her newest, I think, adult fantasy duology that's coming out. I have previously read Rachel's One Dark Widow series, which I enjoyed, but it was not like my favorite fantasy series. Something about this book just hooked me. So I listened to the audiobook reading it, and I'm definitely planning to do a physical reread in the fall because I think it's perfect for the fall time. The audiobook was incredible. If you're into audiobooks, I definitely recommend doing it that way. This book follows Six, Sybil, who is this like diviner seer. It's set in a really unique gothic fantasy world full of gods and seers and diviners who can see into the future. And suddenly something happens where Sybil's other like diviner sisters are missing, and she has to go on this journey with this knight and her gargoyle to try and figure out what is going on with the gods that led to her sisters disappearing. The romance in this was fantastic. The commentary and the fun, quirky one-liners of the gargoyle was so good, and I cannot wait for the next book in this series. Okay, the last book I have is another recent favorite, and that is Atmosphere by Taylor Jenkins Reid. I was so excited for this book because I love Taylor Jenkins Reid's books so much, and when I found out that this was about an astronaut and is another sapphic queer romance, I was so excited. This follows Joan, who is one of NASA's first female astronauts in their space shuttle program in the 1980s, and it follows Joan as she essentially leaves her family, goes to the space shuttle program where she finds new friends in her team. Essentially, she throughout this book is falling in love with Vanessa, who is one of her teammates, and dealing with a lot of mixed emotions at a time where queer romance and relationships was not allowed, especially in NASA, but just overall. I cried constantly reading this. It was such an emotional story. I loved Joan's character. I loved the inner dialogue and thoughts she had as she tried to work through not only her sexuality, but her presence in the space shuttle program, whether she was good enough, and her relationships with her family and her niece. And I just loved this book. So that is it for this little video. I hope that you found some new recommendations or books that you want to check out. These are top tier books for me, like 5 stars to 6 stars. I loved each of these books so much. I reread quite a few of these books, and I also can see myself rereading them in the future, and that just shows you how much I love a book if I reread it, especially multiple times in a year. I just feel like I've had such a good reading year so far this year. All of the releases have been amazing, and I can't wait to see what the second half of 2025 brings us. So I would love to hear your favorite book of 2025 so far. If you want to comment that so I can check it out. And as always, if you enjoyed watching this video, I would love if you subscribe for more bookish videos from me in the future, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye!